You did mention before people don't really debate now, or they don't understand the concept of debate. You've had ones that are degenerate into name calling and stuff like that, and the art of it is lost because, like you said before, you're generally not trying to convince the person across from you of your viewpoint, but the audience that's watching.
Yeah, the audience is what matters more than anything. It's nice if you can convince the person across from you too, but it's not really the goal. So like an example of this, in this very studio at this very table, 2 nights ago, I was debating with a complete, no, that was what, last night?
2 nights ago.
2 nights ago. Okay. Yeah. Debating with a complete idiot.
And the chat is going nuts right now.
Didn't know. I mean, this guy didn't know anything, and he was just an incoherent, babbling mess. And what happens is they get in their emotions, they start filibustering, they don't know what to say. Right? Debate is about structured arguments for propositions and determining whether the proposition is true or false based on those arguments. And it's like, look, that is an art form that's going by the wayside, which is incredible considering that the war of our time is an information war, not a physical one. And debate is the best weapon you have in it. And so many people are so bad at it. And it's definitely a tool you need, which is also a shameless plug for Debate University. So you need to go over there and get my debate course immediately because it's awesome. So shameless plug there as well.
And oftentimes the more mainstream you go, the worse they get at debating. Like probably, I've never seen you guys debate, but all 4 of us would just absolutely take any mainstream news anchor to school
right away.
Well, one of the problems I have like with calling debate right now is like it's something different than what classical debate is.
Sure.
Right? Like classic debate was take a subject, take a phenomenon, take a dynamic, whatever it is, and then you have one for and one against, and you're debating whether or not that thing is true or it's false, right? It's not about I'm going to make my opponent look bad or whatever. It's not, there's no, I mean, that's why we have like logical fallacies in like classical, like logic and debate and stuff. So if you ever take if you're on a debate team in college or something like that, or you just say classic logic classes, you're going to learn about logical fallacies and things like that. And the reason why those were kind of drawn out as sort of like no-nos, you know, like against the rules kind of thing. Like you attack the subject, you don't attack the person, right? We all know what an ad hom is. Ad hominem, you know, it's just, you know, calling you're an asshole, you know. But the reason why we have those, or we identified those, is because it distracts from getting down, you know, boring down to the point and finding all the details and finding all the stats itself, and everything. Yeah, exactly. And then you've got modern debate, which is this good or bad? Is this a good practice or is this a bad practice? And then it's convincing the audience at that point.
Well, it's interesting. There's nothing new under the sun, right? If you go back to Socrates and Plato, they were the original blood sport debaters, and they actually were in the street humiliating people. And that's where the idea of the sophist came from, is a certain type of person they're debating, right? And they were engaging in then what was called sophistry. And it was like, haha, stupid. You don't know, you don't understand how to make argument. Like they humiliated them just as bad as we do in modernity.
Well, but I mean, like during the debate, though, like the debate, let's just say this, the purpose of the debate was different than what we have. Well, like, and then so you get into like postmodern debate, which is my opponent is a liar and he's on the enemy side and and him. But you know, it's basically you're just building a case, and it could be about anything.
But they point, but as this is pointed out,
the point is to destroy your opponent.
Yeah, but as this is pointed out in ancient philosophy, what is rhetoric? It's anything that convinces. And so if it's the case that I can convince you by telling you how bad he is and never engage in a single argument, you walk away thinking he is, didn't I win? Didn't I win? Did I win the debate? Maybe not. Right.
But especially if his argument is really bad.
Right.
Is really stupid.
Right. So the thing is like
with the
rhetoric has its place too. But the problem that I think you're pointing out, and it's a great problem to point out, is that it can't all be that now, and that's what it all is anymore. It's all just rhetoric without any
political environment, mostly, or like the education.
I think that most people's worldviews are indefensible, and most of they say is untrue, and it's unfounded, and it's really stupid, and it's
propaganda.
Yeah, and it's way easier to use rhetoric and appeal to people's emotions than it is to ask about a true false proposition that might hurt a worldview and cause cognitive dissonance.
I think it's often also to do with attention span as well. Because if you look at Piers Morgan, what is that? That is just people going at each other and with little tidbits. People get their information from TikTok. If you actually want to study a proposition, you have to be able to steel man the other person's worldview and then be able to logically break it down yourself, have a proper framework, and that takes a lot of.
So
a
in
lot of
some
effort.
sense, like it's the lack of empathy because basically people need to be able to put themselves in somebody else's shoe to understand basically.
And
what
they also
they're
they
arguing,
want to
right?
understand it like this.
Yeah.
That's not really possible.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like that's a really good point. A lot of times, high tier debaters have oppositional worldviews. Like in boxing, maybe, or UFC, you might see this. There's a respect that's given between the two of them because they have to wear the other person's mind like a skin, right? They have to really understand exactly what their position is, and so you can at least see the view. Like, well, the view makes sense. I may argue the view. I may think it's wrong, but it's not incoherent or stupid. You're not this isn't a stupid person who has this view. It's just an incorrect
but
view.
Do you think it's because of the physical danger of those sports as well, forces it a little bit?
Well, I don't know. Charlie Kirk was just assassinated, so it seems like debate's becoming a much more dangerous sport.
Well,
yeah.
We were just having this conversation over dinner about like combat sports and then debate. So if you're going into a fight, a boxing ring, and you're just swinging from the hip and you're getting emotional, you'll pretty much always lose. But if you go in there and if you stick behind your jab, you watch that person, you watch their footwork, you watch their chest, you watch their eyes, and then you are tactical about it, you're going to win. It's the same with debate.
Boxing's not good. Jiu-jitsu's better, bro.
Butt sniffing.
So debate's not good. Debate's not good. Rhetoric's better.
So in the debates I've done, and I did them in college, and then I've done a couple with like Destiny, and mostly I get a bunch of flat earthers. But the main thing I end up debating is social circle versus like cold approach and stuff like that. Whenever I talk to someone, I remember the first thing I always think is, what if everything I believe is wrong? What if everything, and I rebuild my argument from the ground up, believing everything I believe is wrong. Secondly, I obsessively go over every single one of their arguments on video every time I can. And I always assume that the person I'm debating is smarter than me, more quick-witted than me, going to come back with punchier, funnier lines. Usually it's not the case, but I always assume that is the case beforehand. And you said something that I totally agree with. At the end, I in my mind, I'm like, thank you for allowing me to show this worldview. So I come into there with gratitude. And you guys see when Sneeko and Destiny were ganging up on Rolo, and I went on Fresh and Fit that one time, it was never personal. And I was like, oh, I can see how you would have that worldview, but here, just consider this. And I always had some sort of like statistics to back up what I was saying. And I found that that's probably the best, as opposed to what a lot of guys do, where it's like, oh, this guy's more popular than me. He's got more followers than me. Let me yell at him and talk shit, because that way I can probably get some clout off of this. And that's what I see happen probably the most.
Yeah. I think
that is what happens the most.
Yeah.
All right. What's funny though is it's counterintuitive, because if they would actually engage in the debate, even if they lost, right? If they put their view out there, they would actually get more followers to them. They would actually get more people who had, but that's
and it
not
makes
the
you a
world
lot
we live
better
in.
debater as well. Like I remember I was speaking to Rachel Wilson, and she was telling me how Andrew used to just sit down there and just watch these leftists in their spaces, in their TikToks, in their Discords, and all these sorts of things for hours and hours and hours. And she'd be like, "Come upstairs," and he'd be like, "No, I have to understand them. I have to understand everything about them."
Yeah.
Like you said, like you have to be able to wear their skin, and that makes you so much better a debater.
I will tell you one other thing that I did is I would listen to someone's viewpoints on whatever it is, and it didn't matter if it was dating or the astronomy or we landed on the moon or whatever. And I would actually, before they got to their viewpoint that I knew they were going to get to, because I watched them do it at the last 6 debates, I would bring it up and the opposition to it before they ever got to it, so that they couldn't even use it. And so that was a big one. Like I'll give you an answer for one.
That's so what you're doing is you're pre-assuming the argument, you're refuting it before we can ever get to it.
Right.
And what that does, it takes the ammunition out of the gun.
Yeah.
Right. So now what do you got? I've already destroyed all this many times in opening statements. I'll destroy opponents. They have nothing, no other place to go.
I'll tell you one of the ones I did that made people furious is I debated John Zerka on whether or not the earth was flat. And I started off with the presumption. I was like, nothing I'm going to say has to do with NASA, photographs from space. All of my proofs are going to be done by normal people standing on the surface of the earth in fake places like Australia. Yeah. But like I said,
totally fake, by the way.
Yeah, totally fake. But when I said that and they realized they couldn't use NASA is a lie, the moonlight, when I took 70% of their argument away, I got the most hateful comments in the chat. How dare this guy? What's he talking about? Can't talk about NASA, because I knew that's where the majority of they misunderstand. For instance, I'll give you an example. NASA makes composites of like several different photos together, and they composite them on grayscale, and then they color the photos afterwards, just because some of these nebulae don't appear in the visible spectrum. And so you show them later. Well, all the flat earther or the moon landing denier here or space is fake guy is composite fake. That's all they hear, and then they don't go there. So seeing their argument or studying their argument.
Well, they have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of these, by the way, that are publicly accessible.
Yeah.
And you can use basic software to light them up. And while it is true that there are artists who make them far more flavorful, okay, that is 100% the case. You can see there's actual images there.
Yeah.
And so, I won't get into it too much more than that, because otherwise every flat earther and their brother will come after me, and I'm just not interested in the flat earth. I have all the concerns in the world that I'm after.
In terms of the
debate, that is not one of them.
I reckon that's one of the most interesting parts of debate is actually tactics.
Yeah.
Because I do the opposite sometimes. So I was debating a left or right, like which is more dangerous in terms of political violence the other week. And I kind of intentionally made it look like I didn't really know what I was talking about in terms of facts and studies in the opening statement, because I didn't want him to have time to prepare for when we were in the opening dialogue. I knew he was going to pull out the studies. I just knew it was coming. And then I hit him with, all right, let's look at the methodology.
Yeah.
And I've got like guys like Andrew and then Rob Knorr, who's another guy on our team who's just an absolute savant when it comes to political statistics.
Yeah.
And he's training me on this. So I know exactly what to say, but didn't want to give him time.
I debated one time. Remember Gary, the numbers guy? He's like, it's astrology and it was numerology and all this kind of stuff.
I watched that debate in preparation for a debate with Gary.
Yeah.
That debate with Gary went so terrible for Gary. And all he's done ever since then is sit in Twitter spaces and talk. And that's all the guy can do. He's never.
Well, that's his whole business plan.
Yeah.
That's his whole revenue.
Yeah, the whole revenue.
That's what he does. Yeah.
Gary lost like a couple hundred followers on Instagram after that debate. Because so if you guys go on Social Blade, look at the date of the debate, you'll see he lost.
Well, he just spent the whole debate with you pissed off.
Yeah.
He was just like, if you go, I mean, and the thing is, just like when you're like that, which are not good. It's not like the guy doesn't have great optics to begin with. Like he's stupid. So when he's spurting out against a guy like you, who's not stupid, they look ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so I always imagine him when he's in the Twitter space that he's in like an oversized chair for his, and he's flailing his arms. You know what I mean? And another thing, and another. That's how I always envision the guy.
You ever seen the South Park poo bag episode?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Where his mom has to bring the poo bag and he's playing his game.
Yeah.
He's got the pimples on his face.
So anyway, the tactic I was going to bring up is he would say something which was completely false. And I would literally look at the camera and I say, this is just for the audience. This is called blah, blah, blah fallacy.
Yeah.
You see what he's doing here? He's did this and then he did it. And then I would return back to talking to him. But I would like stop with like being a narrator, be like, as you guys can see, he said this a few minutes ago. Now he's changed to this. You can change it. First 11 meant this, and now 11 means 1 + 1 is 2. So now it's the number 2. You guys see how he changed it, and then I go.
Which,
back
by the way, is a subtle form, and almost all numerologists do this. And it's an old occult practice. It's a subtle form of not brainwashing, but mesmerization, or you would call it modernity, maybe hypnosis.
Yeah.
So it's a low form of hypnosis, and the idea is to get you in this pattern where everything that you're hearing sounds good now, right? That's 11. That's 11. That's 11.
Yeah.
That's 11. That's 11. The two of you, there's 1 and 1, but the two of you are next to each other. Looks like 11.
Yeah.
And that predicts that this studio was always going to be here. And then let's count this 2, 4. There's 6 of us, right?
Plus
6.
5.
Yeah. Hang on. 6 and 5. That's 11.
Number.
I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 monitors.
You know the other thing that's really funny
Coincidence?
I think not.
The other